The United States population is increasing, so housing units seemingly predictably are as well. According to the U.S. government census website, the U.S. population from 2000 to 2008 grew by 22,202,889, or by 9.27%. And from July 1st, 2000 to July 1st, 2008, housing units increased by 12,968,297, or 8.997%. Yet given that not every person born or immigrated owns or rents their own place by themselves, this is actually creating a surplus of housing. This increase has produced many more housing units than needed, or rather used. Occupied housing from 2000 to 2008 grew by 6,906,197, or 9.385%. This is 6,062,100 less than increased units, or 46.7% of the increased units. Of course, then vacancy has increased. Vacant rented housing climbed steadily from 8 to 10% from 2000 to 2008, and vacant owned housing climbed steadily from 1.6 to 2.9% from 2000 to 2008. Of course, there were fluctuations in trends between 2000 and 2008, but these data show that newly built structures were ultimately unnecessary and with obviously decreased demand. People can live fine without these extra and constantly added to houses, and increased demand wouldn't necessarily negate this fact. These data, of course, exclude clearly unnecessarily added to strip malls, Home Depots, Lowe's stores, Walmarts, and other business structures only multiplying mostly because of unregulated, unbridled, blind greed. But natural human-supporting ecosystems are destroyed needlessly even with mind to profit. Restoring vacant buildings, or at least using their strong or workable foundations, would be ultimately just as, or even more profitable. Without mind to environmental permissions and other legal expenses, building new involves the costs of lot clearing, soil cultivation, digging, foundation building, utilities and plumbing work, and then construction, versus just restoring or just demolition and construction. Tyler Gilmet, insurance adjuster and affiliate with the lumberyard in Ludlow, Massachusetts, has a unique perspective on this issue. So what other details could you give from your experience regarding the costs of building new versus demolition of existing homes and rebuilding them?
Well, with the cost of building new, you've got to look at purchasing the base price of purchasing a lot. You've got to clear the lot. You've got to dig the footprint for the foundation, pour the concrete, hook up the main water, the main sewer, the electric, which can add up. It's very pricey. No, if you're looking at the costs of buying an existing home, demolishing it, and rebuilding, the costs can be much lower. These houses that aren't structurally sound often sell for below market value. Demolition for a 2,000 square foot house would be about 15 to 20,000. Oftentimes, fire departments will use these houses as a classroom setting, which can lower the cost of demolition. In addition to that, after the house is demolished, you have the foundation left over, which it's intact, so you can just rebuild on top of that. Uh, with the foundation intact, you also have the main water, the main sewer, the electric, all hooked up to the house, which is a huge money saver. In addition to that, you can rebuild the house to be energy efficient without the use of electricity, which can also save money.
Rampant development is a cultural habit of all those involved unquestioning of the status quo: sellers, real estate agencies, contractors, construction companies. It is thus most up to policymakers and those with current or potential influence in non-governmental sectors to step up. The government can offer disincentives for new building and incentives for restoring or rebuilding, or maybe banning new foundations even. And entrepreneurs can find ways to bring the issue of land preservation into the free market, for instance. But it is also up to the common citizen who directly perpetuates certain cultural habits too easy not to fight. It is up to them to fight resisting giving in, but also to support or also become involved in causes larger than themselves. People, who even include politicians and CEOs, care though. Amidst many similar instances, groups of neighbors in Amherst, Massachusetts rose to defend 37 acres of farmland against developers in 2006. Even the sellers turned down their $2 million offer in favor of the neighbors' offer of $1.2 million only, to create a community-supported working farm called Simple Gifts. Massachusetts has the third highest average amount of housing units per square mile in the U.S. The nation reported an average of 32.8 housing units per square mile in 2000, while Massachusetts reported 334.4. New Jersey was first with 446.3. This is not including businesses. The Northeast has felt the impact of development more than any other region, being the most densely populated of its size in the country. The Trustees of Reservations, thought to be the first conservation organization of its kind in the world, a regional land trust, was formed in Massachusetts in 1890. So, it is fitting to listen to the residents of Massachusetts, people most impacted in this country, about their opinion on development. 4,000 residents and public officials in the Boston metro area, one of the most densely settled areas in the world, came to recommend through the Metropolitan Area Planning Council that lawmakers, private industry, and state and local governments work together over 2 decades to shift growth from remote new suburbs to existing town centers. People clearly don't want to live on the streets, but they recognize the lack of need for more suburban growth. Yet they also recognize the need for preservation of wild spaces. Of course, the environment supports us with air, water, and food. But we self-defeatingly degrade the quality of all these things. For example, air, water, and soil are polluted because of archaic forms of energy production. Plants are thus contaminated in their nutrient uptake, and animals that eat them. And nearly whatever we eat, breathe, drink, and touch is affected by these things made unhealthy to deadly. The environment also gives us resources that are not never-ending. And one such resource is land, which offers air, water, food, and resources, but also enormous human benefits beyond these of a most obvious physical nature. There are reams of scientific studies confirming a strong relationship between physical and psychological health and exposure to nature. According to a new study in the American Journal of Preventive Medicine, nature can have an impact on even cancer healing. There is even a link between ADHD and a lack of exposure to nature. And then there is the social stress found in overcrowded suburbs and cities with no wild spot left to find. These annoying objects called strangers linger all around, in my way at the store, causing traffic, being loud. Maybe if I knew them all, I wouldn't be so annoyed by them, but this would be impossible given their sheer number. So I remain distracted by the constant presence of humans that I don't know. Even the constant presence of humans I do know would be distracting from focusing on anything besides humans, such as focusing inwardly on thoughts that can help me realize better ways to live my life, thoughts even about deepening relationships with others. In acknowledging all the benefits of open space, and acknowledging the possibility for workable changes to the unnecessary cultural habits perpetuating its loss, what possible defense for land development remains? Ted White, an educator in geography at the University of Massachusetts at Amherst, has researched and studied about both private citizens and politicians holding an anti-preservation attitude. People who not only do nothing to help the situation, but act decidedly to lend further strength to it.
Long-term thinking is hard for a lot of people to do, and yet it's the best kind of thinking, because generally if you have long-term thinking, you don't have regrets about whatever decision comes out of that. You have short-term thinking, you may feel like, oh good, we're being responsive, but those are more often the times where you then regret that decision, and it seems short-sighted and foolish. If you can sort of move away from basing a decision kind of on fear and anxiety, and really think, well, how can we sort of more carefully think this out, then you're probably going to get a better outcome.
And maybe thinking about other people rather than just the short-term gain for yourself.
Absolutely. Thinking out, many generations, like, okay, this may not amount to so much for us, but in a couple of decades, this is really going to be incredible.
A poignant question could be, are those who are, to whatever degree, interested in convenience and/or profit over the good of society really happy because of it? Studies have confirmed a region in the brain that rewards humanitarian actions as opposed to selfish actions. It seems most people are at least not full-blown sociopaths, and should thus have at least some good feeling response to actions, and probably then a life dedicated to others. Socially effective behavior could include talking to a friend or saving a country of people. However, consistent such behavior would necessitate sincerely caring about the current world population, and especially humanity's future. Something that would undoubtedly help humanity survive now and into the future is a healthy environment. One that would help us in most obvious ways, but then also in ways that fulfill higher needs. Dedication to the environment would thus offer good feeling and a sense of gratifying social contribution, but also in the benefits of clean air, clean water, healthy food, and physical and psychological health. There are many ways that this can be done, but there is clearly room in the present world for more active involvement in working for land preservation and other ways of helping the environment.
From my own experience, that going to hearings, public hearings about what to do with this space or that space, a lot of times it tends to be sort of powerful interests that have representation at these meetings. Basically, they have some paid staff that are at those meetings because there's a bunch of money behind that project and they want to see it happen. And then often there's sort of the unpaid volunteer citizen who's there on their own time, who has a different vision about what could happen. And often those people are somebody with more time, so they're retired, or maybe they're sort of supported by a spouse or partner or something like that. But sort of the problem is that even though these decisions affect a huge range of people, most of those people don't have the time and don't see sort of the value of getting in that discussion. And so they sort of wait on the sidelines, and then they're either pleased or displeased with the outcome. But I think people feel kind of removed. And so the challenge is how to create higher participation. How do you make these events seem either more fun or more productive?